Hello, what is going on, everybody? Welcome in. It is this week's episode of The Walkthrough. I am your host, Joe Macheca. It is Tuesday, January 7th. How will Ashlyn Watkins' ACL injury impact the defending national champions? And what will the new addition of Rasul Faison and other transfer portal players bring to Gamecock football? Also, what are some final takeaways from South Carolina's bowl game in the Cheez-It Bowl against Illinois? All that coming at you live after the break. This is The Walkthrough again. Buckle up, because here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this week's episode of The Walkthrough, presented by the Chief Sports Network. And now, here's your host, Joe Macheca.
Yes, indeed. It's that time of the week. This is The Walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca. Welcome in, everybody. Checking in. Back in Columbia, made it out of the freezing north of South Bend, Indiana. But the lead tonight is South Carolina women's basketball will be losing star forward Ashlyn Watkins with a torn ACL. She suffered that up in Starkville, Mississippi this past weekend. Obviously it's a super big blow to this basketball team, but I think Watkins' post presence, her ability to do it on both ends of the floor, right? I mean, she was such a good rebounder and such a big defensive presence, which makes this loss, so powerful. But I think, so you lose Watkins, right? Everyone's wondering who's going to carry the load, who's going to carry the boats, man? Who's going to carry the boats? I think it'll be a combination. Obviously, you have Joyce Edwards and Chloe Kitts already playing phenomenal. Right. Joyce is averaging over 10 points a game, and Chloe's at, I think, 9.4 points herself. And so those two obviously are going to control a lot of the post presence and the post offense. But when you look at the other side of things, you're going to see a lot of Joyce Edwards, or you're going to see a lot of Adele Tack and Miriam Dowda as well. Coming in the back half of that rotation in terms of post presence and post offense, right? So in terms of Dowda, I think Dowda's really been coming along, especially in practice. Dawn was talking about it, getting all three, along with Sakima Walker, getting all three of them ready to go to play the back half of this rotation at forward. But I think Dowda's really come along. She's possesses a unique threat for one of Dawn Staley's bigs. Dowda can shoot the three ball. Brad Muller said it on this show, earlier this year when I had him on. It's like Dowda's unique because she can shoot. If she can come along and be ready to play, big minutes for this team down the stretch, which I fully expect her to. And I mean, you need her to, considering what's next for this South Carolina team. But instantly, like it's Dowda, it's Tack's really coming along as well. She just needs some development. Really starting to see the game though. And we've seen how Dawn, rotates and really brings players along. We saw that firsthand with Maddie McDaniel, right? Her game looked a little rigid at first when Dawn first started bringing her into the lineup. But, before she went out with the concussion, Maddie McDaniel looked comfortable. The game started to slow down to her. So I expect that for Adele Tack and Miriam Dowda here going forward. But, if there's one, Tyler had said it best when I was on the radio with him. Shout out 107.5 The Game as well. And I'll have some quotes from Dawn Staley here as she was on Carolina Calls. And shout out to the people I was engaging with on the message boards, Plato's PPG over here on the Big Spur. But Tyler had said it best is one thing about Dawn Staley's teams is that they're going to be deep, right? So I don't necessarily think this Watkins injury is something that should raise concern. Now, this team is already, it always has been stupid deep, right? And you have two of your, highest scorers on your team, come from the post presence, right? The small forwards, in Joyce Edwards and Chloe Kitts. So that's one thing obviously you should be excited about. And Joyce and Chloe are going to be challenged defensively, right? Because taking over Watkins' role defensively possessed a lot, right? Because Watkins was fourth in the SEC, or fourth in the country, I believe, in blocks per game, with 1.2 or 1.8 blocks per game, I believe, is the stat. But yeah, so I mean, Watkins is just her defensive presence is going to be missed. You're going to have somebody step up, and I think it's going to be big for Joyce Edwards. I really do. I think this is going to help Joyce Edwards a lot when it comes to her development, and making strides to be a star college basketball player. Right? We've seen the offensive talent. She's worked on the turnovers a little bit. It's gotten better. Right? She hasn't had as many. I thought she were going the one way kind of thing, and just misses with these passes. Her turnovers have gotten better. Offensively, she's been great. But defensively, this is going to challenge Joyce Edwards, and I'm excited to see what it brings out of it. And same goes for Chloe Kitts, right? And Chloe's been great defensively, and not to say that she wasn't, but I think this is also going to require a step up from her as well. But it's obviously a big blow, and Watkins, she's had a rough couple months here. Shout out to my guy Q for that. Q with the take, but Ashlyn Watkins, had the off the floor stuff to start the season, right? Missed your first two games, or missed the first game, and I guess the second game, the home opener as well. But yeah, you missed your first two games of the season with the off the floor issue. I'm not going to get into that. 'Cause number one, it's none of my business, and number two, it's over. So I don't necessarily also I don't think anyone should be going dig up that because she tore her ACL, but we're going after her for that. And I haven't seen any of it yet, and I don't want to see any of the karma stuff. But I think Watkins, she's just had a tough couple months, and she's slated for surgery coming up here in these next couple of weeks, and you wish her the best, right? She's Ashlyn Watkins. She's been a great person in the media and everything that I've engaged with her. She's kind and caring. So she's one of those that you wish for a speedy recovery. And Dawn said on her call-in show with Brad Muller that she is hoping to see a super senior year, just like a really, really good senior year from Watkins this season. So unfortunately not able to finish out her junior year as she wanted to, but just one of those things. So in other news tonight, South Carolina adds transfer portal running back Rashul Faison. Dynamic running back coming from Utah State. 6 foot, 206 pounds, I believe, 205. I turned on his tape. I believe I can pull up his tape here too. Let me see what I can do. I'm going to pull up his tape, and you guys will be able to see. And so like he reminds me a lot of Jawarn Howell without as much speed, or without the dynamic speed, right? Unique running back, really talented for sure. But here's Faison's tape as we get it going. Rashul Faison. This is what South Carolina has added.
Good yardage again. And it's Faison back into the game. He's all the way down inside the 20-yard line. Exactly.
Rashul Faison.
This goes down. Faison. And Faison. Huge yardage, and he's still up. They can't bring him down. And Faison's
what we've seen from Jawarn Howell already this season has been
their job.
We saw from him in the bowl game, and what we've seen from him already, just in general,
with the nice spin move
that
there.
Howell can get in and out of the tackle. He's got some length to be able to break one. On just the one play that seems like it's going up the field, his own run that doesn't seem like it's going to be more than 7 yards. He's got the length to kind of break. I see the same thing with this kid. Very similar to Jawarn Howell, and be a guy that can develop, right? The next generation of running back. What does this mean for Oscar Attaway? I don't think it means anything for Oscar Attaway. I think Oscar Attaway is going to be happy, carrying most of the load this season. And I think they're going to give it to him as a running back one.
Crossman fielded much more finely brought down by Walker Burgess.
About this back, it's like can have, it doesn't hurt to have as many forces in that room as you get, right? Especially with, again, knock on wood, with the injuries that everyone is
Finally
sustained
knocked out of
years.
bounds, but what a
You
run
need as many
to
guys.
start that drive, guys.
Faison
Does a great
is
job
one of those
of
guys.
education in the backfield.
As
Give
well.
a dead leg and then burst outside.
Gotcha.
Just a great run.
Yeah, all right. So now you guys can hear me. But yeah, so as you guys have been watching tape, this is the new running back in this room with Oscar Adelaide, go along with Oscar Adelaide. And they've been doing a whole lot more in the portal as well. Added some offensive linemen here as well. You added, Rodney Newsome and Boaz Stanley from Troy. Two guys I think that are going to shore up this running game and replace what you lost on the offensive line for one, but also two, I also think it's one of those things. It's just going to continue to help this team run the football, right? You worried about what you were losing in the portal and just this offseason with guys graduating. You're able to shore up your offensive line, which plus helps the run game. Huge. So Faison, Newsome, and Stanley, all Gamecocks, and all going to help this run game. But I expect to see Oscar Adaway be the one, and then you've got a combination of Howell and Faison. And now everybody's still competing, right? Like this is, it's what I compared it to in my early conversations with this Faison signing, right? It's like bringing in a Robbie Ashford for Lenore Sellers, right? You've got the guy in the running back room that you want the primary touches to go to, but you also want a guy that's going to compete. And now, I don't necessarily know if Robbie had as much of a chance of beating out Lenore as Faison, and I guess Howell will for Adaway, but the hierarchy of this room is pretty evident as it is, but we'll see more in spring ball. But this kid reminds me a lot about Jawar Howell, and that's just kind of what I'm gathering from Faison and the newest addition to the South Carolina roster, the South Carolina football roster. So big stuff. And then obviously you added Aaron Noland already, which was huge. That was big. Coming Christmas Eve before the bowl game, a lot of those guys, the portal was already open, but Aaron Noland to back up Lenore Sellers is big, absolutely big. So did want to talk about that. I can go back to Chloe Kitts, check out some of the comments too. Matt Sellers checking in, Matthew Miller as well. How we doing, gentlemen, on this fine Tuesday? Sellers says, Chloe and Joyce can handle business, need Fagan to get more aggressive. Yes, Fagan is, she's coming around, right? I think, especially as a scorer, does her job, gets in, gets out, really slept on as a scorer as well. So I think Fagan's going to get more aggressive and you're going to see more. This team is not done by any means in terms of depth, right? I'm not willing to go as far as to say that this team is like on a normal playing field just because of how deep the guards are, right? I think you've got starting point guards coming off the bench in like the 3-4 substitutions, right? I think Maddie McDaniel might start on a fringe kind of Big Ten team or a fringe ACC team, right? And then Tessa Johnson starting, Phil Wiley starting for another team, right? 95% of this roster is probably going to start for another team. So I think Fagan's part of that. But yeah, this team is stupid deep. This women's basketball team is stupid deep. And talking about Adele Tack, her aggression in the limited minutes for sure. Tack's been good. She's still again ramping up to get to the point where you can see starter like minutes, but also Dawn. And I'll get to the quotes too that Dawn had about this injury and everything, but Tack included. But on Watkins, Dawn said she's an impact player on both sides of the ball. She's a shot blocker, deter shots. She could play in the paint, on the perimeter, and defensively. And then offensively, I think she was just starting to come into her own. I thought she was blossoming into the right, and then also being a junior the right way. Unfortunately, we're going to have to see a super fantastic senior year, right? So that's big. But then Tack, right? She mentioned Adele's been ramping up, doing pretty good. And Sakima, I have no doubt that she'll step up. No doubt that everyone will step up and get a little bit more of as in the void as Ashlyn leaves. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. Ladies still balling for sure. As Mr. Joker checks in, the linebacker corps will have to step up and look for Swain to have a big season. Mr. Joker saying Vakari Swain to have a big season. Yeah, I'm here for it. I think Vakari Swain is one of those guys that you need to keep at the school. on campus. He's one of those guys that, he's just a dog, right? And you need to keep an athlete like that in your program. Bakari Swain, going to be the next heir in the Clayton White and also Torian Gray defensive back hierarchy as this football team starts to build out the rest of its roster. Certainly with the Swain take, and they need to go get some more linebackers too. I think they had a couple of those guys, and then maybe some defensive tackles. I know you've already added a few defensive tackles right now already, but it's just one of those things where you just have to continue to bulk up in the transfer portal as the opportunities present themselves. Matthew Miller says, how about Tessa and Davis both having career highs this week? Power couple. Crazy. Yeah, I know. Zach Davis, the men's team, not a whole lot to talk about with the men's team after getting blown out in Starkville. But yeah, we'll see what goes on with that. But it's crazy how basketball players gravitate towards each other. Usually leans on or tends to happen every once in a while, yeah. But yes, so I'm going to hit a quick commercial break as we've reached the halfway point. I know I'm going to kick it. I've got to kick it over to Matt Anderson and Alex Jones here in a second, but going to hit a quick commercial, wrap things up for the walkthrough tonight. But appreciate everyone tuning in. And again, going to hit a quick break, and we'll be right back. Wrap everything up.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com, thebarndominiumco.com.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody.
MidlandsSC.com.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case. Nice. So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth, and we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate all of our sponsors, the Barndominium Co., Protect with Bear, giving me the opportunity to have this show and all of that. Appreciate them. Wrapping things up, I did want to talk about Nick Eamon-Wari really quickly before we got out of here. I mean, if you guys have any questions just in general, I'd like to leave this back half of the show a little open-ended. So if you have any comments, questions for me, Matthew, I'm going to get to your question here in a second about the Fighting Irish, but did want to talk about Nick Eamon-Wari. But if you guys have anything else for me, please throw in the comments, and we'll keep this open-ended and try to get to as many as I can before we get out of here. But Nick Eamon-Wari, on this show, I gave quite a bit of a hard time to based on, the way that everything in the Cheez-It Bowl went down with him, right? It was similar to, what Cam Ward did, abandoning his team in a bowl game, and along the lines of, it doesn't look great on the draft stock and all that, and I expect him to drop. But on second glance, and not second, I mean, Nick Eamon-Wari cleared it up, first of all. And Nick, as he announced his departing from South Carolina, he mentioned, as for the bowl, it was just some miscommunications between me and some of the coaches. We weren't on the same page. I'll take accountability for that. Never intended it for it to end like that, and I never quit on my teammates. Still one hell of a season to look back and celebrate. Glad I was a part of it. It was huge. I think for Nick Eamon-Wari to be in the position that he's at. for the NFL draft. I think he's going to shaping up to be a first round pick at this point. And so his actions in the bowl game were obviously not looked upon too well. But at the end of the day, the PR is going to wipe and wash it all away. I don't necessarily think Nick quit on his teammates. I mean, he did for that game, but I don't think in the grand scheme of things, I think Nick was one of the biggest anchors on this defense in general. But yeah, so it was just one of those things where the optics of it did not look good. But clears it up. And again, I guess leaves this university as a Carolina man through and through. But yeah, it's Mr. Joker. Heard he said it before the game. He was only playing a half. Is that true or not? I'm not sure. I haven't necessarily heard that, but maybe he did to some people. And then what I'm guessing happened is that he did to some people, and then it didn't get as passed up through the wire. As things do in college football and in bowl weeks, you're running around all over the place, and at a unique site. Trying to get things done, try to play a football game. So things like that kind of get washed under the rug. And I get it. I think that's kind of what happened. He didn't quit on his teammates. And as Matt Sellers makes a point here, he was out there cheering on the defense after the Kilgore interception. Yeah, if he did, Beamer didn't know. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, Mr. Joker. Like he could have, may or may not have. It's just, again, it's one of those things in bowl weeks gets lost in the shuffle, as I'm sure. But again, and then the kid took accountability for it. Like if he, just the miscommunication and everything. And in a game that's as highly charged as it was, it's just, again, one of those things that the optics of it all didn't look as great as it was. I did have one more thing on the Cheez-It Bowl. Brett Bielema is still tweeting about it for some reason. I'm not really sure why. I don't get it. It's over with. It's done with. You would think that a guy would just, because Bielema in the grand scheme of things had the thing going for him that one, he won the game, but two, he was laughing at coach and everything like that. If Brett Bielema would have kept his mouth shut, he might have walked out of this somehow being viewed as in a better light, which is crazy to think. But Brett Bielema continues to run his mouth on social media, and now continues to give this Gamecock fan base the utmost evidence that Shane Beamer is still living rent-free, right? Like it's a 5-star balcony apartment overlooking some water at this point. Like that Shane is living rent-free up there in Champaign, up there in whatever mansion that they gave Bielema whenever he signed that deal up there in Champaign somewhere. He's living rent-free up there. So I don't know. Just Bielema continuing to tweet about it. It's just one of those things where it's just like, like you can see by the actions continued and carried on by Bielema that, there's still some rent being paid or rent being, negated up there. But so, yeah. EXO checking in. How are we doing? But yeah, to get back, Matthew Miller, I know this isn't a Notre Dame program, but yes, that's why I'm wearing my green today. It's why I will be wearing my green on Thursday. But yes, rooting for my Fighting Irish from back home, obviously born and raised in South Bend. Had the privilege of going to the playoff game against IU. Shout out to the ticket lottery, because my hierarchy out of my brothers probably would not have gotten me a ticket to that game. So got bailed out there. But yes, I feel pretty good about him. Just with Penn State and the question of Abdul Carter, and is he going to be ready to go? And even if he's not at 100%, I think Notre Dame showed that they can win with more. And it's something. You try to compare this to South Carolina. South Carolina's done that before, and sometimes it's how you continue to rise up the college football hierarchy. And I think Notre Dame's just doing it on the biggest stage, right? You look at the Georgia game. I said it on the radio with Tyler Head. It's just Georgia had the size, they had the speed, they had everything in terms of a physicality standpoint. Notre Dame just found a way to win with more. And then in result of that, they're going to get more size, more speed, more physicality, more of that. It's going to be more doable, or it's going to be doable. So I've seen it from a South Carolina standpoint. But feeling good about my Irish. But yeah, so kind of wrapping things up, putting a bow on this. Again, Gamecock women's basketball loses Ashlyn Watkins. But expect Chloe Kitts to step up. Expect Joyce Edwards to step up. You're going to see some Miriam Dowda, some Adele Tack, Sanaya Fagan as well. But this team is not doomed. This team is not doomed. If you missed any of that, talked about that in the front end of the show. It was a lead. So check that out if you missed any of that. But again, looking ahead still, this Gamecock women's basketball team, toughest part of their schedule is coming up here in the, after this Texas two-step. Shout out to Brad Muller. Again, continues to drop bars. So this little Texas two-step, this little game that they got, so it's a little two-game homestand between Texas A&M and then Texas, fifth-ranked Texas, right? So got to play Texas first, but 5 of this South Carolina women's basketball team's next 6 games are ranked. A&M is the only team that's not ranked. The next 5 teams are good. You've got number 5 Texas after A&M. That's a home game coming up on Sunday. It's going to be a big tilt. Get out to Colonial Life. But number 18 Alabama, right? It's big. Number 10 Oklahoma. Then you've got to play Kim Mulkey and Flage and LSU. And then number 16, Tennessee, all before the month of January ends. It's the toughest part of their schedule by far. And then, you've got, I think, 2, 3, easier SEC opponents in Georgia, Florida. But then you play Texas again, and then you've got UConn still tucked away in the early weeks of February. So Dawn said it, though, on her radio show, and she was like, our non-conference schedule sets us up to play anybody, anywhere, at any time. The best want to play the best. And I think, her issues of scheduling the non-conference have, given her, dealt her team the hand of being as good as you are with the depth that you are in the competition that you had to play in this non-conference schedule. Pretty good. And Dawn also mentioned it too, talent has risen as well in this conference. It's gotten a lot better. EXO says, love Chloe stepping up this year. She's been great. And technically, Brad Muller said it best on my show when I had him on. Chloe's technically a sophomore, right? Because when she enrolled in, obviously 3 years ago, but she enrolled in January she graduated from high school early. So, right, she should have been a senior in high school when she enrolled. Should have been a sophomore, or should be a sophomore as it is. Mr. Joker says, wasn't the game I was expecting to watch, ready for next season and ready to watch the team surpass this last season, Gamecock Nation, Gamecock lifestyle. Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Joker putting a bow on things. But yeah, all in all, again, I don't think this women's basketball team is going to – they'll certainly miss Watkins' defensive presence, but offensively, I think they're going to be just fine. So continue to watch this team score at a very high rate. And then also, in other news, South Carolina football continues to pile guys in on the portal, adding Rashul Faison today. Again, going to be interesting. You need as many horses in that running back room as you can get. Shout out to TD, touchdowns for that take. Need as many horses in that room as you can get. So depth is a luxury. I've been talking about it all show with this women's basketball team and how Dawn Staley's teams are deep. How Dawn Staley's teams are really stupid deep, like dumb deep, stupid deep, like crazy stupid deep. On so many levels, right? So I think Gamecock football has got to pull a little trick out of Dawn's bag, right? Continue to ramp up in this transfer portal cycle. Continue to get stupid deep to where when you're getting in the grit and the grind of the schedule and you're losing players left and right, you've got the depth to compete and keep going. So certainly next week we'll have some more portal additions to talk about, and I will also have like a portal wish list of kind of what you need. Currently, still think you need some defensive tackles. We'll get to that as well. But yeah, again, appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Matt Anderson and Alex Jones are streaming on the backside of this, so stick around to the Chiefs Sports Network YouTube page, the Big Spur Twitter, and everywhere you view this show. Those guys will be live at 8 o'clock, so kind of passing the torch. Don't leave us too early. But yeah, no. So appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Again, lots to talk about, and certainly we'll have plenty more next week. We'll have the update of South Carolina women's basketball doing their Texas two-step, finishing A&M in Texas, and then also hopefully some more portal additions to talk about as well. So appreciate everyone tuning in again. And this has been the walkthrough. Go check out Matt and Alex. Coming up next, on the Chief Sports Network YouTube channel. Again, appreciate everyone and have a good night. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next Tuesday or Wednesday.